For the longest time, I used to think I had a faith problem. I'd sit with this deep, unsettling feeling that I wasn't connected enough, that my prayers weren't reaching their destination. I thought if I just believed harder, if I could muster up more spiritual conviction, then the path forward would finally become clear. I was waiting for a divine sign, a lightning bolt of inspiration that would tell me exactly what to do and when to do it. But the truth was harder, and it had nothing to do with the strength of my faith. The real issue was a quiet, insidious addiction that was masquerading as discipline. I was addicted to preparation. My days were a whirlwind of activity that felt incredibly productive. More planning. I'd spend hours creating intricate content calendars, mapping out topics for months in advance. I'd research the perfect microphone, convinced that better gear was the missing piece. I'd tinker with my schedule, moving blocks of time around like a game of Tetris, searching for the optimal workflow. More praying, more getting ready. I'd read every article, listen to every podcast, and absorb every piece of advice on how to launch, how to build, how to succeed. I was constantly preparing for the journey, packing my bags with knowledge and strategies, but all this motion led to almost no execution. The content calendar was full, but the blog was empty. The new microphone sat in its box. The perfectly optimized schedule produced nothing tangible. I was stuck in a perpetual state of about to start, and here's the trap. Planning feels productive because it protects you from failure. It's a comfortable, risk-free zone, where you can feel like you're making progress without ever having to face the possibility of rejection or imperfection. You can color-code a calendar for hours, read 3 devotionals seeking the perfect verse, and never actually have to make the sales call, write the first line of code, or face the market. You never have to ship the work. I called it diligence. I told myself I was being thorough, responsible, and wise. I was just waiting for the right moment, for everything to be perfectly aligned. But it wasn't diligence. It was fear. Fear of not being good enough. Fear of being judged. Fear of putting my creation out into the world and having it fall flat. And that realization was the painful, necessary first step toward actually getting things done. And then I saw something dangerous. Prayer had become my emotional substitute for action. I'd have a critical email to send, one that could change the trajectory of a project, and instead of writing it, I'd pray for the right words. I'd ask for wisdom and clarity. And that felt good, it felt productive. But when I opened my eyes, the screen was still blank. The email was still unsent. The feeling of peace I got from praying had replaced the need to actually do the work. Or I'd have a difficult phone call to make, a conversation I was dreading. So I'd journal about it. I'd fill pages with my anxieties, my hopes for the outcome, my strategies for the conversation. I was externalizing the fear, which felt like progress. But the phone stayed on the desk. The number remained undialed. I had mistaken preparation for participation. This wasn't prayer as power, it was prayer as procrastination. I was using these sacred practices to get an emotional pass, to feel okay about not taking the risk. I had to reframe my entire understanding. Faith isn't waiting comfortably for a sign, or for the fear to magically disappear. Faith is moving uncertainly, trusting that you'll find your footing along the way. It's not about having all the answers before you start, it's about starting despite having all the questions. The new model became, pray, then press send, journal, then make the call. Faith is sending the proposal with your hands shaking because you believe in the work more than you fear the rejection. It's about channeling that spiritual connection not into a feeling of comfort, but into an act of courage. Faith is launching version 1 when your ego wants version 10, because you understand that real-world feedback is more valuable than private perfection. It's the profound belief that action, however imperfect, is a form of worship. It's honoring the gifts you've been given by actually putting them to use, right here, right now, in the messy, uncertain arena of reality. So I rebuilt the way I work. Not around moods, around systems, standards, what good actually looks like for today, not someday. Routines, same start time, same shutdown, non-negotiable. Execution blocks, 90 minutes, one target, phone in another room, measurable output, calls made, demos, booked, pages shipped, numbers I can't argue with. And here's the founder reality they don't put on the highlight reel. Codex Dominion pressure, the weight of code, content, cash flow, convictions all at once. Uncertainty that wakes you up at 3 a.m. Responsibility that doesn't care how inspired you feel. Momentum versus fear. every single day. Let's talk about a trap that so many of us fall into, especially when we're trying to build something meaningful. It's the illusion of progress. For years, I was addicted to planning. I'd spend weeks crafting the perfect content calendar, months researching the ideal microphone or camera, and countless hours rearranging my schedule in a productivity app, color-coding every last task. It felt incredibly productive. It felt like I was in control, like I was making smart, strategic moves. But here's the hard truth I had to learn. Planning feels productive because it protects you from failure. As long as you're in the planning stage, you can't be rejected. Your idea can't flop. Your email can't get 0 replies. It's a safe, comfortable space where the dream remains perfect and untouched by the messy reality of execution. I was building a fortress of plans to hide from the battlefield of action. The pivot for me came when I looked back at 3 months of meticulous planning and realized I hadn't actually shipped a single thing. I hadn't made a real offer, published a core piece of content, or had a conversation that could lead to a sale. The plan was perfect, but the business was imaginary. And for Christian entrepreneurs, this trap can have a spiritual disguise. We tell ourselves we're waiting on the Lord, or praying for clarity. And while prayer is essential, it can become a holy form of procrastination. I remember journaling for an hour about whether I should reach out to a potential client, asking for a sign. I'd pray for peace about a decision, but use the absence of a feeling as an excuse not to act. I was confusing emotional comfort with genuine faith, but faith isn't waiting comfortably. Faith is moving uncertainly. It's trusting that God will provide the strength and wisdom not before you act, but as you act. So if you're a Christian entrepreneur who feels stuck, hear me. You don't have a faith problem. You have a comfort problem dressed up as piety. The goal isn't to feel a perfect sense of peace before you take a risk. The goal is to pray for strength and then take the risk anyway, trusting that God meets you in the motion. The antidote to this paralysis isn't more inspiration, it's operational discipline. It's about building systems that override your emotional state. This is the framework that changed everything for me. First, standards. You must define what good looks like for today. Not perfect, but a clear, achievable benchmark for your work. Second, routines. Your startup and shutdown rituals are non-negotiable. A consistent start to your day builds momentum, and a consistent end allows you to disconnect and recharge without guilt. Third, execution blocks. These are sacred. 90 minutes, one single target, and your phone is in another room. This is where the real work happens. Free from the distractions that feed your desire for comfort. And finally, measurable output. Stop measuring how you feel and start measuring what you did. How many calls were made? How many demos were booked? How many pages were shipped? These are the numbers that prove you showed up. This system gives you a track to run on, especially on days when you feel doubtful, scared, or uninspired. And you will have those days. Being a founder, especially at a place like Codex Dominion, means living with a constant weight of uncertainty and responsibility. There are sleepless nights where the fear of failure is overwhelming. You're not just responsible for your own dream. You're responsible for your team, your clients, your family. The pressure is immense. In those moments, it's tempting to retreat back into the comfort of planning or waiting for a sign. But here's the secret. Authority doesn't come from looking certain. It comes from building while doubting and moving anyway. True leadership is forged in the quiet, consistent, day-after-day decision to choose momentum over fear. It's showing up for your team when you feel like an imposter. It's shipping the product when you're terrified of the feedback. That's what builds real authority, not a perfect facade, but the visible evidence of your resilience. My life changed when I stopped asking how inspired I felt and started measuring execution. The transformation wasn't a single dramatic event. It was the sum of 1,000 small, disciplined choices. It was choosing action over anxiety, one execution block at a time. It became a simple rhythm. Pray, then press send. Plan, then publish. Ask for peace, and put points on the board. Today, I still pray. I pray more than ever. But I pray on the way to the work, not instead of the work. Because faith isn't a pause button. It's the courage to move while the outcome is still unknown. It's the engine, not the anchor. It's the fuel for action in the face of uncertainty. The feeling of certainty is a luxury you cannot afford. But the habit of execution is a fortress you can build every single day. So the question isn't about how you feel or if you're ready. The only question that matters is this. Now, what will you ship before the day ends?